lesson, and again, I really need y'all to pay close attention today because this is pretty tough stuff. Section 5, absolute value equations and inequalities. Before we start the equations, I'm going to review absolute value. Hopefully we won't need a very long review. Absolute value is drawn with two bars around a number. If I give you the absolute value of -3 and ask you what is the absolute value of -3, you would tell me 3. Absolute value is simply the positive of that number. What would be the absolute value of 3? The positive of that number, not the opposite, right? So positive 3. Absolute value of -4. 4. Absolute value of 4. 4. Any questions on that? Today we're going to be solving absolute value equations. Okay? We're taking what we've been doing. We're going back and taking what we learned in Chapter 1, I believe it was, and we're putting them together. Chapter 6, Section 5, absolute value equations and inequalities. Let me zoom out a little bit there. One important value, or one important application for this, I'm starting out just telling you kind of some people that do use it, is when factories deal with the amount of error in measurement. In this lesson, we will solve absolute value equations and inequalities. Here we go. To solve an absolute value equation, we will use the following steps. These are on your notes. Step number 1, we will remove absolute value bars and divide the equation into a positive and negative equation. We'll solve both equations and we'll check our answers. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If I say the absolute value of x is 4, let's discuss this real quick. The absolute, and this is what the equations will look like that you're solving today. The absolute value of x, and when I say x is just some number. The same way as yesterday, x is some number. We don't know what x is. We're trying to figure out what x is. Before we solve it with my method, let's use our common sense to solve this. The absolute value of something is 4. Okay? Y'all are saying x is 4. Is it? Is the absolute value of 4 equal to 4? Sure. Is that our answer? No. That's not our only answer. But when solving absolute value equations, most of the time you'll have two answers. X equals 4 is one of them. X equals -4 is the other one. Let's talk about why. If the absolute value of something is 4, that something could be 4, because the absolute value of 4 is 4, right? Or the absolute value of -4. What is the absolute value of -4? It's also 4. So therefore, x could be 4, x could be -4. Let's do another one of those quick ones. If I say the absolute value of x is 3, x could be 3, or x could be -3. Any questions? Huh? Okay. Take the x out and put a -3 there. Is that a true statement? Because when you're solving equations, listen close to this, guys. This won't help just on today's lesson, but it'll help on all the solving equations lesson. When you're solving an equation, you're trying to figure out what could I put in the place of x to make this a true statement. That's what a solution to the equation is. So therefore, could I take out the x and put a 2? Would that make it true? No. Could I take out the x and put a -4? No, that'd be 4 equals 3. That's not true. Could I take it out and put a -3? Because absolute value of -3 equals 3. That's true. So that's an answer. Could I take it out and put a 3? Yeah, that's a true statement too. That's what you're trying to figure out. What could I put in the place of x to make it true? We're getting a little bit tougher here in a second. What if I said the absolute value of x, I'm going to trick you this time. What if I say the absolute value of x equals -2? Okay, could we take out the x and put a 2? The absolute value of 2 is -2. But I can't just put a negative out there. I've got to figure out what could I put where x is at. Could I put a -2 there? What's the absolute value of -2? That's also 2. It's not -2. There's no solution. The absolute value of something, think about it, the absolute value of something can never be negative. Can't be. No, you got it wherever the x is at. That would make it true, you're right. But wherever that x is at, that's where you're trying to figure it out. Let's work some problems. Let me close that, because I'll end up opening it up. The first problem I've already worked for you. Absolute value of x equals 3. X was 3, and x is -3. The second one. Absolute value of 2x minus 4 equals 8. We're jumping into the tough ones right off the bat. Absolute value of 2x minus 4 equals 8. Okay, watch really closely. Because if you can figure this out from this first problem, you won't have any trouble. Not yet, since I had the absolute value bar. You might could look and come up with some answers after a while, but we need a method. We need some way of figuring out, okay, what is x equal to? Think back to the problem I showed you a while ago. What if I gave you the absolute value of x equals 8? What is that x equal to? 8 or negative 8. Do we not kind of have that anyway? The absolute value of something equals 8. Does that make sense? So therefore, that's something. Y'all watch what I'm going to do. That's something because this is kind of like a question mark. The absolute value of something is 8. So therefore, that 2x minus 4 either has to be 8, you just told me this, or 2x minus 4 has to be negative 8, one or the other. Because what if this was 8? What if you take this out and put an 8 there? Is it true? Absolute value of 8 is 8. If I take out 2x minus 4 and put a negative 8 there, is that true? Yeah. Absolute value of negative 8 is 8. So therefore, 2x minus 4 has to either be 8 or 2x minus 4 has to be negative 8. So can we solve that now? 2x minus 4 equals 8. Move the 4 over. 2x equals, how do you move 4 over? Add 4, so you get, last step, how do you move 2 over? Divide by 2, you get 6. Yep, sure is. The second equation, let's solve it now. Move the 4 over, do plus 4. 2x is, when you do plus 4, you get negative 4. Divide by 2, you get x equals negative 2. And actually, the last step I said on your notes, I said to check it. So watch what we're going to do now. I want you to come right below that. The absolute value of 2x minus 4. What's x? What do we think x is here? 6. So therefore, take the x out and put in a 6. So you have 2 times 6 minus 4. What is 2 times 6 minus 4? 8. Equals 8. So again, all I did was I took my x, plugged in a 6. Is that true? Check. We think x is also negative 2. So you get the absolute value of what's 2 times negative 2? Minus 4 is negative 8. Right? Does that equal 8? Check. Good question. Whatever's... Here's the answers. These are the answers. 6 and negative 2 are your answers. This is where we checked our answers to make sure they're right, and they are right. So your answer there would be x equals 6, x equals negative 2. Two different answers. As soon as you do that first step, that's all you do. Absolute value of 2, I'm going to call that x. 2x plus 21 is 33. Absolute value of 2x plus 1 equals 33. Think about it. Think about what I'm saying here. The absolute value of something. Take out 2x plus 1. Put a question mark there. What does that question mark have to equal? One or the other. Either 33 or negative 33. But instead of a question mark, we have 2x plus 1. So therefore, the 2x plus 1 has to either equal 33 or negative 33. That is all you do right there, guys. 2x plus 1 is 33. 2x plus 1 is negative 33. Solve each of them. That makes sense. Move the 1 over. You get 2x equals 32. Next step, divide by 2. You get x equals 16. There's one answer. The next one, move the 1 over, do minus 1. And again, let's talk about this for a second before I go any further. I told you it's very important to know how to solve an equation. If you don't know how to solve an equation, you're going to be hurting for the rest of the year. Do you see now why it's important to know how to solve equations? Once you get behind in math, once you doze off one day, once you fall asleep one day and don't get that lesson, guys, you lost. Because if you don't know how to solve two-step equations, you can't do this. Yes, ma'am. I'm on C, I think, maybe. Yeah, I put an X instead of a Z. Oh, it's supposed to be 21. Okay, we'll solve this one, then we'll work that one. So 2x plus 1 equals negative 33, so that means 2x would equal negative 34. Divide by 2, you get x is negative 17. I did write down the wrong answer, or wrong problem. You could check that. Plug in a 16. 2 times 16, does anybody know that? 32 plus 1. So the absolute value of 33, is that 33? Sure, that checks out. Plug in negative 17. 2 times negative 17. Does anybody know that? Negative 34. Add 1, you get negative 33. Is the absolute value of negative 33 equal to 33? Yes, checks out. For most problems, yes. Well, actually, y'all have two answers. Both of them will always check for y'all.